Happy Monday, everybody. Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com, back for another edition. Monday live. Lot to talk about tonight. We're kind of heading into that stretch of a few weeks before spring practice. February is typically a dead period. Not a whole lot to talk about in football. Sure is a lot to talk about in basketball, though. Baseball, we're less than 2 weeks from opening day, one more weekend, and then the next weekend it'll be here. So the countdown is on. Expecting a pretty solid baseball team there in Clemson this year. Been to a couple of scrimmages this weekend, and it's hard not to like what you see with some of the bats in that lineup, some of the younger guys. But whole different discussion when it comes to basketball, man. You get another excruciating 1-point defeat, this time to Virginia, which if you're a Clemson fan, you're kind of used to losing to Virginia. I think Brad Brownell is now like 4-17 all time versus Virginia. They have been the Cavs have been a thorn in his side throughout. Just for a while, Clemson just has not been able to buy a bucket from the perimeter, it feels like. And on Saturday, they couldn't buy one from inside the paint either. I mean, you tell me P.J. Hall's going to go 4 for 16 from the field, I'm going to predict Clemson's getting run out of the building. Still, they only lose by a point. They just could not make the easy ones. I think somebody said there was a graphic on the broadcast at one time said they were 8 of 22 on layups. 8 of 22 on layups. That's not going to get it done. The 3-point shooting wasn't terrible for Clemson on Saturday. Shot 35% from 3, so it's not great, but it's not terrible. It's not as bad as what we've been seeing. I heard an interesting theory before the game Saturday. Clemson's really struggled shooting inside Little John since the beginning of the year, beginning of the semester. They don't get as much practice time. So what I was told, anyways, they don't get as much practice time inside Little John anymore because of the gymnastics team. And I had a theory floated to me that maybe they're not seeing the basket as well since they don't practice inside Little John as much anymore. Take that for what it's worth. Again, it was just a theory that was floated by me. I thought it was interesting, but no matter how you slice it, this team's not shooting the ball well. When PJ Hall is shooting 4 of 16, that's not gonna. You're not gonna win very many games. You didn't get a terrible shooting night from most everybody else. Shefflin was 4 of 7. Chase Hunter was 4 of 8, although he was 0 for 2 from 3. Beadle was 2 of 4. Gerard was 5 of 8 and 4 of 6 from 3. Chauncey Wiggins struggled 1 for 4, and he missed a couple easy ones too. But it's just brutal. And I know the last play for me with Clemson, particularly since ACC play started, I get it. This fan base is going to be divided with Brownell and stuff. You're going to have those that just hate him no matter what, and those that support him. What I'm about to talk about has nothing to do with coaching, really. That last play of the game, I've seen so many people griping about how Brownell didn't call a timeout there with however many seconds it was left, and you don't call a timeout there. You already got this. You already got the play you want, designed or drawn up or called or whatever in the previous stoppage. You don't call timeout there and let Virginia set up D. You push the ball down the floor, and it was Chase Hunter was supposed to take that ball to the basket, and draw contact or make shot, whatever. Instead, he gets a second defender, kind of steps toward him, leaves Jack Clark wide open, and he hits Clark for three, who was wide open. Virginia didn't leave anybody else open. So you either got Chase Hunter, and I thought he gave it up far too early. You know, and it's kind of been typical of some of the play we've seen from this team in ACC play. You're not getting very good guard play. And it goes beyond shooting the basketball. I don't think they've been very good defensively out on the perimeter at times. We saw the game in which they played a lot of zone. If you're going to play zone, you better hope your guards come in there and do some blocking out and get to the boards. And I didn't think the guards played very well in that regard for a lot of that game. You're just not getting really good guard play. Somebody says going for three with Jack Clark to end the game is on Brownell. I guarantee you that's not how that play was drawn up. Again, as I'm saying, you got a certain faction of fans, no matter what happens, is always going to be on Brownell. But I guarantee you, like Brownell, hate Brownell, love Brownell, despise him, whatever, I guarantee you that play was not drawn up that way. It was not drawn up to be kicked out to Clark. Although we Clark's not a very good three-point shooter. Is not who you would typically want the ball in his hands at the end of the game. But he did have a wide open look. Probably had enough time to dish it down to PJ down low. But for whatever reason, man, this team cannot get over the hump. They've got no killer instinct. They don't know how to finish. Call it what you will. They just can't get over the hump, and we see it year after year after year after year. They just cannot take that next step as a program. And I am of the opinion that this year's kind of tournament a bust for this team. I think they've got to get in, especially with the way this team's put together. You look at this team on paper, this should be a tournament team. This should be a team that's, competing should be, to me, in my opinion, in the top 3-4 in the ACC. And, they've had some excruciating losses. Again, it goes back to not being able to finish. You got a 1-point loss to Virginia. You got the 3-point or the double overtime loss to Georgia Tech. 1-point loss to Duke. It's just several. I think there's 3 or 4 one-possession losses in ACC play. Not knowing how to finish. Georgia Tech, you had to lead late. Duke, you had to lead late. Virginia, you came back and took a lead late in that fourth quarter. You got to be able to finish those games, man. And at a certain point, you got to start taking a look at how come they can't. How come they can't get over that hump? Why are they not getting over that hump? Sheridan says those are good losses. Yeah, screw the net, man. A loss is a loss in my eyes. I know you're joking, but to me, there ain't no such thing as a good loss, man. A loss is a loss. I hate the net rankings. Everybody knows I hate. I think they're trash. You lose to Duke, you move up in the net rankings. You beat Louisville, you drop in the net rankings. No, that's neither here nor there. Teams kind of painted themselves into a corner here now. You go to North Carolina, where you've only won one time ever. Not saying that they got to win this game to get in. I don't think they do. But let's say they lose Saturday, and the way this thing's played out in the past few weeks, just especially the loss to Duke, not a loss to Virginia, and giving up the big lead to Louisville and hanging on to beat them. It wouldn't shock me to see them get run out the building Tuesday night or tomorrow night. It wouldn't shock me at all. PJ all talked about after the game, flipping the script. To me, that should have happened already. If you can push a button and flip the script, that should have happened. Heck, back after that Georgia Tech double overtime loss. You went and got a decent road win at Florida State after that. Then heartbreaking loss to Duke, which you make no mistake, I think they got screwed in that game. But you had a little sloppiness at times there at the end to help contribute to that. Then you give up the 24-point lead to Louisville. barely hang on to beat them. And then the Virginia game. Now you're fixing to find out what this team's made of tomorrow night. After that, you go on the road to Syracuse. You get Miami at home, a team that you've already lost to on the road. Then you get North Carolina State at home, Georgia Tech on the road, who's playing pretty good basketball. Then Florida State at home, Pitt at home, go to Notre Dame, Syracuse at home, Wake Forest on the road. And there's some winnable games on this schedule down the stretch. It's not nearly as backloaded. The first half of the ACC schedule is much tougher than the back half. Man, they're going to have to win most of these games. I'm assuming they're going to lose tomorrow because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And when you're one for all time in Chapel Hill, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in this team going up there and winning. But there's a lot of winnable games left on this schedule, and they're probably going to have to go. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Probably 7-3 in those 10 games to get in. It is just, it's the way this season started. I don't think anybody saw this team. I know I didn't. Having the struggles that they're having right now, but you find out a lot about a team once they get and experience some adversity. That's when it gets tough. It's easy when you're starting out the season 10-1, 11-1, and things are going good. It's when things aren't going so great that you really start to find out about yourselves, and we're finding out that this team's probably or might not be quite as mentally tough as we thought they were, despite the fact that it is full of experience. There's a bunch of experience on this roster. Chase Hunter's played a lot of basketball. Joe Girard's played a lot of basketball. P.J. Hall's played a lot of basketball. I mean, there's experience all over the place. But it's not translating to wins, man. And you get to the end of the road here. I'm a big believer in, man, you got to let the season play out. You got to let the season play out before you start talking about anything to do with coaching. So, but I do believe, and I have believed since all off season, before the season, throughout the season, barring some major injuries or something, this was a tournament or bust team. Tournament or bust. How much is Brownell's buyout? He's got 2 more years left on his deal after this year. I think the buyout's 1.5. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's what it is after this season. Let's see. Hype for Brownell that Clemson's shooting problems this year are not on him. That's crazy to say in his defense to me. Well, I see both sides of that because he absolutely can't go out there and shoot wide open shots for him. But at the end of the day, the head coach is responsible. It starts and stops with him. This is a results-driven business, and I've had so many people tell me over the years when I say I think Clemson should be better in basketball or could be better in basketball than they have been, and the response I get, well, they've never been any good. They've only made so many NCAA tournament appearances. They've only ever been to, however many Sweet 16s, and, the track record's not there. I don't care what the past is. I don't care what the history says. That doesn't mean you can't be better going forward, especially in the portal era. There's a lot of money invested in this year's team, man. A lot. So that's another dynamic in play here too. that isn't really getting talked about. But I don't buy into the fact that just because this program's not had a lot of success in the past doesn't mean that it can in the future, and that it shouldn't be expected to. Um, does Clemson have the best facilities in the ACC? No. Do they have all the resources that say in North Carolina or Duke has? No. But they got enough. They should be competing for a spot in the tournament every year. I think they should be in the tournament at least 50% of the time. I don't think it's asking too much to be one of the, let's just say best 65 teams in the country. Because that's what gets in now. Really 66. I don't think that's asking too much. I think that's where the expectation should be minimum. And, if the trend that they're on right now continues, they're going to miss it after that start in non-conference play against one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country. And it looks like, if this trend that they're on continues, they're going to be on the bubble or they're going to be out. And let's just assume for a minute they don't get in. 3 NCAA tournament appearances in 15 years. That's not good. It's not good. I think Clemson should shoot for better. And I know Graham Neff wants better. People that think he don't care about basketball are sadly mistaken. Guy's only been in that job a couple years now. It's going to be fascinating to see how this thing plays out because I think this is a big stretch of games for Brad Brownell. Did you watch the video on Patton? No, I did not. Nah. Brad can't go out there and make layups for them. Yeah, and see, now I agree with this. Brownell's not the guy missing layups, man. He's not, the guy not blocking out. So it's I've talked about this with football too. At a certain point, players have to accept some of the responsibility too. They got to go out there and produce. And when they don't, if a guy goes out there and goes 4 of 16 from the field, that ain't all coaching. I mean, I know a lot of people want to point that direction and say it is, but it's not. I'm not you want to, critique the style of offense they run. I can get on board with that. It's not the most creative thing, but, Brownell's always been more of a defensive minded guy, and for a long time, I thought Clemson played a very boring brand of basketball. And he kind of adjusted that. He kind of adjusted a few years ago and started running, more offense orientated. Started running, got a little more. Golly, I can't think of the way I want to word it. He started leaning a little more towards the offensive side. I think in the early years, the players he had kind of dictated the style they needed to play, kind of like Purnell back in the day. He used the full court press, and then to kind of make up for the lack of players or lack of talent. And then when you get to the tournament, that kind of stuff gets exposed. But, it made for exciting basketball during the season. Thing is, the style Clemson played early in Brownell's career was not very exciting. I wouldn't call what they play right now the most exciting thing. He runs that motion offense. I'm not a big fan of it. You want to critique those things, I can get all bored with all that. But, he can't go out there and shoot it for him. That is one thing he can't do. It's not that Brownell hasn't had 14 years to build a winning culture. I am really disappointed this year, as this team on paper should be a solid team. Yeah, this team on paper should be a solid team. There's something I know one guy who swears there's something amiss in the locker room, and I'm not in the locker room, so I have no idea. I do think that as we got a little deeper into the season, teams kind of figured out how to defend this team. And if you could take Joe Girard out and you had somebody that can lock him down, your chances of beating Clemson go up dramatically because they've got nobody else that's going to beat you out on the perimeter. And as much as everybody wants to say, well, just feed PJ, well, that's what they did a lot of Saturday, and he couldn't make them. If you go back and watch the first half of that game, there were very few perimeter shots taken. And they got into a 8-10 point hole. You get an 8-10 point hole against Virginia, you're not climbing out of it without hitting some threes. But generally speaking, you got to have somebody that can hit some three balls in today's game. It is what it is. It's just kind of evolved that way. But I don't think there's a bad culture inside the program or anything like that. I'm just not sure that this team plays together at times really well. You can throw 5, 6, 7 guys out there together, and if they don't click, they don't click, and this team don't look to be clicking. That's another risk you take in the portal era. And when you bring in a guy from the outside, or a couple guys from the outside, or 2 or 3 guys from the outside, you never know if you got a team that's going to gel or what. Most of the time, they tend to. You don't always see that stuff, but sometimes it can roll over onto the court. But I am a big believer in the fact that if teams can find a way to lock Girard down, he is easily frustrated. And when he gets frustrated, it shows in his play on the court. And I think that affects the whole entire team sometimes, or it has at times. And another thing I'll say about the culture, you talk to Brownell's players, they love him, man. They love him. Most of them would just they would die on that hill. They will go to bat for him, man. They absolutely love him. Not all of them, most of them. There's it's hard, but again, end of the day, it's a results-based business, man. And if you don't get in the tournament this year, that's 3 times out of the last 14 years that you've made the tournament. You'll be missed it in consecutive seasons in which you were expected to make it. That's not a good look. I don't care who the head coach is. Can't figure out what offense identity is. High, low, pick and roll. Every time we drive, we scored. Yeah, I ain't sure what you're trying to say here, but every time they drove, they didn't score. That team couldn't make a layup Saturday, man. I do think at times this team gets a little 3 happy, and I think over the last few games, it's not been quite as bad. It's nice to see Chase Hunter not throwing up so many from the perimeter when he's struggling like he is. He's a guy who is better when he is attacking the basket and trying to create something off the dribble instead of just hanging around the perimeter. I think he's been doing more of that in recent weeks. I wish he'd have done that on that last play. I thought he gave up on it a little too early. But I ain't sure about this every time we drive, we scored part. Y'all gonna have to ignore the dogs there, man. Somebody's out in the yard. Three and 7, maybe 4, 6, missed the turn. If they go 3 and 7, 4 and 6 down the stretch, I don't think they're getting in. I think you're right. I think they're gonna get left out. Brownell would do just enough to make the tournament, lose the first game, keep his job, and start the cycle all over again. If he gets in, To me, if he gets in, I don't. You're not firing a coach that gets into tournament. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's just like a lot of people wanted him fired for not getting in last year. And you got your AD going on record saying, "Hey, this was a tournament team. They should have got in." You ain't gonna see him, on the other hand, going out and firing the guy. He was just, campaigning to get in. If they get in, the only way Brownell's not back if he don't want to be back. It's hard to fire, especially at Clemson, man. It is hard. It's going to be hard to fire a coach that makes the tournament, seeing as how few times they've made it over the years. No coach is going to want to come to Clemson and coach knowing he could get fired on a year he made it into the tournament. Gerard messed up the chemistry. I don't know. There's some pros and cons to the portal era, right? When you're bringing in 2 or 3 transfers a year, it can really throw off the chemistry. It's a risk you're taking. A couple weeks ago when Gerard was mired in that shooting slump, I'm trying to remember which game it was. Let's see, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech. What game was that? Cannot remember which one it was now. Might have been Boston College game. I think it was the Boston College game. And, Gerard had been struggling a little bit. I was coming off the loss at Virginia Tech. And then right before that, the 1 for 18 3-point performance against North Carolina. I watched him a lot during the pregame. And I meant to watch him again Saturday, and I didn't do it. I got distracted. But he doesn't get talked to a lot. And that could be by design. He's sitting there shooting. But even when they're doing huddles and stuff, like, team huddles, he's not on the inside of it. He's on the very out. He's all the way on the outside, just touching a guy's back. He's not up there in the middle of it. So I don't know. I can only say it's a possibility. When you're bringing in guys from the outside, you never know how it's going to impact the chemistry on a team. And sometimes that could be what throws it all off. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. If Alabama and Auburn can be good in basketball, Clemson can too. Get no arguments here, brother. I absolutely do not buy into the fact that just because Clemson has not had a lot of success in basketball over the years, that means that they can't have some in the future. I cannot accept that. And I'm not even really that much. It used to be I was very emotionally invested in Clemson athletics, football, basketball, baseball. Since I've started doing this for a living, I see it from a different perspective than most people do, and it's taking all the emotion out of it for me. I'm not emotionally invested anymore. I don't care if they win. I don't care if they lose. Obviously I would prefer they win, of course. That's good for business anyways. Everything's always better when they're winning. But I firmly believe, and I always have, that if schools like Alabama and Auburn, like Mike, he's using those 2 examples, can have success in basketball, Clemson can too. I'll use Florida as another example. Florida State is the example I really like to use. If Leonard Hamilton can have the kind of success he's had down in Tallahassee, there's no reason why Clemson can't. They're both ACC schools. Heck, Clemson probably gets more resources pumped into their basketball program than Florida State did, or Florida State does. And if that's not the case, I guarantee you there's not some big time disparity. You know, so I just cannot buy into the narrative that, well, Clemson's always sucked. We're always gonna suck. That makes absolutely no sense to me. That would be the same thing as saying, you know, after Clemson was mediocre in football for 30 years, well, we can never be good in football again because, you know, we ain't been good in 30 years. Well, you see, that certainly didn't play out that way. I am of the opinion that Clemson's basketball program can be much better than it has been. It's not like football. It only takes one guy to transform the program. And now with the portal, you can go out and get him through the portal. You don't even have to recruit him out of high school. It's not quite as difficult as it used to be. So, and you know, you look at all the other sports at Clemson. Football's had success. Baseball's had success. Hey, look at these new sports. Look at women's gymnastics. They've had 3 meets and look at the success. I mean, there's not this, don't get me wrong. I mean, just look how much success they're having out of the gate. Look at softball, how much success they've had out of the gate. Soccer, golf, you know, a bunch of different sports. I mean, heck, I got an email today about the women's tennis team, and they're let me see if I can find it right fast. And we're talking about women's tennis, man. I got it right here. Ranked, the women's tennis 2024 recruiting class ranked 9th in the country. So, I mean, even the women's tennis team is making some waves. There's no reason why you can't have that in basketball, too. Men and women's. Heck, I'm old enough to remember when the women's basketball team at Clemson was pretty good with Jim Davis. I mean, you know, perennial top 25 team. Had been that way in a very long time. But, you know, I remember when they were pretty good. Time for Niff to bring out the whip. Brownell has a history of this year in and year out. Basketball is not football. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, basketball is not like football. You know, it only takes one, maybe 2 guys, man. You know, to kind of turn that thing around. And let me be clear, I'm not one that's in the camp of hating Brad Brownell, because I don't. I think sometimes he gets things dumped on him that aren't his fault, but I do think Clemson can be better in basketball. And I think, you know, if you don't get in the tournament this year, I think you got to take a long, hard look at things. Brownell is gone. If they miss again, program embodies mediocrity. You know, if you don't get in the tournament this year, and you know Brownell's back next year, and I know the word empathy is used a lot, I could see it really starting to set in. If it's status quo and this team does not get in the tournament after the start they had and the expectations being what they were, you know, people think that they're seeing empathy in Clemson basketball. You're not yet. That place was packed Saturday. There were very few empty seats in that building Saturday for the Virginia game. Most of the games I've been to this year since school started, the building's been packed. And we're not seeing empathy in the way we might start seeing it if this team does not get into the tournament and, you know, Brownell's back to for year number 15 or whatever it is next year. I could see that really starting to impact attendance and those kind of things. Because as much as people say, I know so many people say I'm done with basketball. I ain't watching no more. Guess what? I'm getting texts in the middle of the game or Facebook messages in the middle of the game from those same people every game. They watching. So, I mean, it's not set in the way people are presenting or making it sound like it has, but I think it absolutely could next season if this team fails to meet the goal, which was getting into the field of 64, and you continue with status quo. This isn't the first year teams run so hot and cold with a lot of cold weather. It's offense style coaching or player selection that's still in his basket. You know, the thing that gets me the most about Clemson teams under Brownell are the long extended scoring droughts you see them have every game. And it's not here and there. It's every game. I think they went the last 4+ minutes of Saturday's game without a field goal, if I'm remembering that right. It's every game they have this long, extended scoring drought for whatever reason. If Clemson changed head coaches tomorrow, that might be the thing I remember most about Brownell's tenure is those long scoring droughts, and it's kind of been a staple of this program year after year. But yeah, there's been a lot of hot and cold, a lot of times we see it. That they'll start off great in the non-conference because typically they don't play this big time tough out of conference schedule, and then reality sets in the ACC. This year for me it was a little different because you did play this really tough out of conference slate. You beat a really good South Carolina team. You beat a good TCU team. You got some solid wins under your belt. And then you lost to Memphis, a close one on the road. This team also beat Alabama, beat TCU. Then, they had that 2-point loss at Memphis. And that's kind of where it started to go wrong. They had easy games against Queens and Radford after that, but then the next game after that's when they go on the road and lose at Miami, and they come back home and go one for whatever. Will make one 3-pointer against North Carolina and lose by 10, and then go up to Blacksburg and lose. That's really when the woes started, and you can tell. Again, like I touched on earlier, it's easy when things are going well. Man, when you start to hit a little adversity and things aren't going well, that's when you really find out what a team's made of. And right now, this team cannot get over that hump. They cannot get over that roadblock, man. It is absolutely just thrown in a wrench in this season. This team does not know how to finish off close games anymore. Because, they showed they could win a few earlier in the year. They beat UAB by a point, beat Davidson by 3 points. They beat Alabama by 8, but that game was closer than that score would let on. The South Carolina game was close start to finish. The TCU game was pretty close start to finish. So they were winning some of those closer games earlier in the year, but once they started to lose a couple of them, man, the wheels fell off, and they have not found a way to get them back home. Beetle and Chase scored every drive. I'm of the opinion I would Beadle's a guy I'd like to see more of. Um, you know, I think he does a lot of good things, but I also think he kind of goes off script sometimes, and it does that. And reading Brownell's body language, he's not very happy with him from time to time. And he talked about it a couple weeks ago how I can't remember exactly what he said, but the way I took it was, he's not 100% committed every day, practice after practice after practice. And that's why he hasn't earned more minutes than he's getting. Man, the little bit we've seen of Beetle this year, he's been good. Outside of the fact sometimes I think he goes off script, and I think that ticks off Brownell, but that's going to happen sometimes in basketball. I guarantee you they didn't draw it up. They didn't draw up that 30-foot three-pointer that Gerard shot the other day that went in. Yeah, we watched the same game. I'm not sure what you're trying to tell me here. So, you said when we drove, we scored, and I don't agree with that. Clemson didn't score every time they drove the ball. If you're 8 of 22 on layups, man, you're not scoring every time you're under the basket, not every time you're driving the ball. I mean, we might be talking about two different things. Yes, Gerard is absolutely a liability on the defensive end, but you know that when you bring him in. He's always played zone up there in Syracuse. I think Chase Hunter is taking a step back as a defender. I thought he was better last year than he has been this year. I think Chauncey Wiggins struggles on the defensive end sometimes, as does Beetle. I think that's why we see Dylan Hunter at times more than we do Wiggins, because I think Brownell is a little more confidence in his ability to defend, depending on who they're playing, than he is Wiggins. I mean, he's never said that. That's just the way I'm taking it. But this team's the guards have struggled defending at times, and Gerard's definitely a liability. But you know that when you bring him in. Miami, UNC losses. I don't follow basketball as much, but where are the wins on the remaining schedule to make the tournament? You got to keep in mind, football is not basketball. If Clemson goes 7-3, 6-4 down the stretch, 6-4 is probably going to put them on the bubble. But if they go 7-3, they're going to get in, and it don't matter who those 7 come against, even if they lose to North Carolina and Miami. You go 7-3 down the stretch, well, you're probably going to get in. I don't like to speak in absolutes, but I'm trying to. I didn't look at the net rankings today, so I'm not exactly 100% sure where they are at this moment in time. I'm seeing if I can find it right this second. But they're still last time I looked, they were still inside the top 40. And you'll go up there and lose to North Carolina tomorrow. As long as you don't get blown out the door, you're going to move up. They're 37th in the net. They're 3-4 against quad 1 teams, 3-2 against quad 2. Right? If you just that ain't bad. But if you start breaking that down a little bit, they started out 3-0 against quad 1 teams, so they're 0 for their last 4. But yeah, it ain't gonna matter who those wins come against. If they go 7-3 down the stretch, they're gonna get in. I feel pretty confident in that. Because if you go 7-3, you're 21-14. You're 11-9 in ACC play. You finish over 500 in ACC play. chance of getting in are pretty good. I think I added that right anyway. Actually, if you go 7-3 down the stretch, that would put you at 21-10 on the season. And in ACC play, that would put you at 11-9. Yeah. I mean, it ain't like you got to be playing top 5 teams every week to get in like it is in football. Can't survive being emotionally invested in Clemson basketball, at least not in this era. Not in any era. Maybe Rick Barnes, but even he had some heartbreakers, man. If you were around back then, you can remember that they had that Wake Forest something they could not get over. He had him ranked inside the top 5, but they just could not beat Tim Duncan in Wake Forest. And they never, they'd get beat by, heck, you go look at his tournament teams. Most of them got knocked out before anybody thought they would. So it ain't just this era. Seems Clemson has expected in every sport except basketball when it comes to coaching. I won't say we have to make the tournament every year, but we should at least be in the conversation. You look at what Brownell's being paid, they did invest in him. I think some people might tell you it wasn't a very good investment. And he's not his you go back before the Sweet 16 run, Brownell was on the hot seat. He don't get in the tournament that year, he's probably gone after that season. Not only do they get in and make it to the Sweet 16. His deal was very close to. I can't remember the specifics, but there wasn't much time left on it, so you got to extend him after that run. Have to, and reward that run. And they give him a big raise, and I think they give him a 6-year extension or whatever it was, and they ended up adding 2 more years on it at a certain point, and it had a pretty hefty buyout. So to say they didn't invest in coaching ain't necessarily true. They just didn't invest in it the way maybe you would want them to. They just invested in the coach that they had. Back then, when they decided to keep him on, but the year before that Sweet 16 run, I always believed that one of the biggest reasons they did is because they didn't want to pay the buyout. I think it was coincidentally, if I'm remembering right now, don't hold me to this, but I want to say it was 1.5 at the time, which is exactly what it is right now, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a little bit different time back then. They've done some investing in that program since then. They've invested in the facilities. They've invested in, they've invested in the coaching staff. So I mean, I can't get on board with saying they've not invested in the coaching. Maybe that investment's not paying off in the way some fans wanted to. But Brownell's, it's not like he's one of the lowest paid coaches in the ACC. He's not. I think he's middle of the pack, if I'm not mistaken. And for a while there, he was higher than middle of the pack. But you get after once you get beyond this season, you got to start. I think he's got 2 years left on his deal after this season, so you got to make some kind of decision either way, because you start getting a coach out there with only 2 years left on his deal, and he goes to start trying to recruit. He might have some problems trying to recruit because kids are going to wonder, hey, is he even going to be there in 4 years? So it's starting to get to the point where you got to make a decision one way or the other, regardless whether you get in the tournament or don't. How much of IPTAY and NIL effort is allocated to men's basketball? Enough. I can tell you that there was a lot of money invested in this team this year. Getting Hall back, bringing Gerard down here, getting Chase Hunter to come back. There was enough. I've seen the place full on weeknights this year too. So not in the non-conference before school started, but I've seen the place full on weeknights this year too, or close to it. To me, it don't make a difference what day it is. It is full. If full's full, you let this team miss the tournament this year, and you stay status quo. I got a feeling it ain't gonna be full on Saturdays next year. Should have torn down Little John. Yeah, now I don't know why you don't just build a new arena instead of renovating. I'll never fully understand that. But what you got there now is not bad. It's absolutely not top of the list in the ACC. Don't get me wrong, but it's certainly isn't at the bottom. I'd probably say somewhere in the middle. And it ain't like Brownell's actually had a little recruiting success of late. He's got some talented dudes on board in this current recruiting class, or the one he just signed. I can't remember what basketball signing day is, but there's some dudes coming, like Greg Buckner's son's coming. I mean, it's not like he's having these big issues recruiting. That's not the excuse it used to be, in my opinion. Keep in mind, this is a down ACC. Yeah, I don't buy that either, man. I don't buy that excuse at all either. I know that's the narrative that's being pushed out there, but I don't buy that one bit. I think you got the Big 12 being propped up by the media much more than it should be. I know that's some of the media folks, the national media guys out there are pushing that. Man, I sure don't buy it. No, Clemson's not gotten a lot of help from their bench this year. Hemingway being out for the year certainly not helped. Clark not being healthy hasn't helped. Clark was a guy that was supposed to be heavily relied on off the bench this year, and he's just not healthy, man. He's not fully healthy. He's not going to be all season. I don't think you're getting as much as I thought you'd get out of guys like Chauncey Wiggins when he comes off the bench. I mean, even though he starts sometimes, and I thought we'd be seeing more of Josh Beadle, and we hadn't. But no, Clemson's not getting a lot off their bench. I do think Hemingway's being missed more than is being talked about. He's about the only other 3-point option on this roster right now. Why does PJ take so many stupid fouls? I can't answer that, man. Cannot answer that. He's had a couple of bad ones. Again, I talked about this at the top. That play was not designed to go to Jack Clark, man. So I can't call it one of the dumbest calls. Kind of reading between the lines, it sounded like Hunter was supposed to take that ball to the basket. If you go back and watch it, you want to draw defenders in and maybe leave a guy open. Well, the only guy they left open was Clark, and I thought Chase gave it up too soon. He didn't make the guy commit, to me, I thought he gave it up too soon. Probably should have took it and forced the contact and seen if you get a whistle. You're probably not going to get one there that late, but you probably got a better probability than Jack Clark hitting the three. But he was the only guy that was open, and Hunter gave it up, but it was not drawn up that way. That's not you're not drawing up a play for Jack Clark to take the game winning three. Not even Brad Brownell does that. I didn't say there were 7 wins on the schedule. I say if they go 7-3. Big difference. Big difference, brother. I'm not predicting 7-3 down the stretch. I'm saying that's what I think they got to do to get in. Yeah, I would agree, man. He's not been the same player as he was last year on either side of the court, man. His defense has taken a step back, man, and his shooting has been abysmal. Now, credit to him, he's not taking as many threes as he was 3 weeks ago. He just, I think he only took 2 in the Virginia game. He only took a handful against Duke, and he hit a couple, but even before that, he wasn't taking as many. So he is starting to at least do more attacking, which is I think is his strong suit. Anyways, he's always been a streaky shooter at best. This year, that streak is ice cold. Um, I think he's shooting about 15% from three in ACC play, man, and that's terrible. Brad did not say they drew that play up to go to Jack Clark. I was at the press conference. If the lane was open, drive it, not kick it to an open guy who happened to be Clark, the trail man. Again, that play's not drawn up to go to Jack Clark. I for the people that believe that, I will never change your mind, but no basketball coach is drawing up a game winning 3-pointer to go to Jack Clark. He might be an option, but he'll be one of the last options. I saw somebody posted in the comments, Brownell's Clemson's coaches. Brownell's in the top 30 in pay. So I mean, you can't. They've gone out and spent some money on coaches. It's not like they're not spending money. When the time comes that they decide to make a change, whenever that may be, I think I know Graham Neff, and I know how the way he cares about basketball, or how much he wants to win in basketball. I think Clemson fans might be surprised at that once we get further along into his tenure, at how committed he will be to winning in basketball. He care. People think he don't care about basketball, and that's just nothing could be further than the truth. Just 1 second, I gotta answer this email right quick. Good news, man. Supposed to be getting Eric Bakich Wednesday, 1-on-1. Sorry, I had to answer that. That's what that was about. So be on the lookout for that here on the YouTube channel, man. 1-on-1 with head baseball coach Eric Bakich. We have spent this whole hour talking about basketball, man. I did never in a million years thought we'd do that. Let's move over to baseball. Yes, I was at the scrimmage yesterday. I didn't stay for the whole thing because I was freezing my ace off, man. I had to get out of there. It's not dressed for how cold it was, and it felt like it got colder the longer I stayed there. I was at the scrimmage Friday. Couldn't go Saturday. I was at the basketball game, and then I was there yesterday. But got to watch Aiden Knock throw yesterday, man, and he was every bit as advertised, man. That kid's going to be really good. Fastball tops out in the low to mid 90s. His breaking ball, curveball, whatever you want to call it, it's got a really good movement. The fastball's got bite, moves really well. But man, that change up, man, it was really good. That kid's going to be really good. There's a reason why he's a top 200 prospect in the last draft. Joe Allen had a pretty good day on the mound yesterday. But again, it was cold. Not a lot of hits yesterday. Friday, different story, man. Every pitcher that took the mound got mashed, just got lit up like a Christmas tree. I've seen Tristan Smith pitch 3 times, once in the fall, now twice here in preseason. He's got lit up all 3 times. Austin Gordon pitched an inning yesterday, gave up back-to-back home runs. But I will say this. I was talking with somebody there Friday when they hit 8-9 home runs, I think, during that scrimmage Friday. And I was talking to somebody there, and I was like, good Lord, man, you better hope this isn't a sign of things to come. And he's like, nah. It's like I wouldn't take too much from these scrimmages when it comes to pitching. You don't ever know what one of these pitchers is working on from one day to the next in these scrimmages. And, there's a lot of fastballs for example, there's a lot of fastballs being thrown Friday. Man, it was just one of those days that the balls was just flying off the bat. I have very high expectations for this baseball team this year. We're going to do a baseball preview show. Right now, the plan is to do it. We're not going to do Paul Talk on Wednesday this week. We're going to go Thursday night and do a baseball preview show. So we're really going to dive into baseball Thursday. I got high expectations for this team. I think the pitching is going to be really good. I'm not too worried about, these guys getting hit hard in scrimmages, in intra-squad scrimmages here in the preseason. I look at that this way. I think the lineup's going to be solid. It might not have a ton of power in it, but I think he's going to have enough pop. Billy Hammock's production is going to be hard to replace, but I think Obertop is going to help, offset some of that production. That guy's got a lot of pop. I've seen Will Taylor hit 3 home runs this weekend. I tell you, another guy who's been pretty good this weekend was Cooper Blauser. Hit the ball really well. Devin Parks is a freshman that's looked really good. Jacob Hinderleiter has looked really good at the plate. Made an error yesterday, but it's on a ball deep in the hole. Probably could have been ruled a hit, but I'm really high on the freshman Jaden Purify. I have seen him make a couple errors, but he's not a guy I don't think is going to start this year anyways. Seen him playing second and short. But I think this lineup's going to be really good from top to bottom. You got Canarella and Will Taylor at the top. And guys like Obertop in the middle. It'd be interesting to see where guys like Blake Wright and Hinderleiter and Nolan Nowraki's a guy that's had a good weekend too. He's been playing third. See if he wins that third base job where he slides into things. So still some competition going on at a couple of spots, but I think you got a lineup full of guys that hit the ball, make contact, they put the ball in play. I'm not saying you got a lineup full of power hitters or anything, but they put the ball in play, and this lineup's got a lot of speed. Put the ball in play, get on base, man, be aggressive on the base pass, and I think this team's plenty capable of making it to a super regional this year, man. I think they got the pitching. I think they got the pitching depth. You're going to have a lot of options in that bullpen. And Tickle Tiger, I finally got to watch the submarine guy yesterday. He was really good, too, to transfer. Marchette, is that his name? Malstead. He's gonna help. He's gonna be a big help out there in that pen this year. You got guys like him, Reed Garris, Nick Clayton, but if those guys are back, Rocco Reed's got some experience now. He looks like his command's, better than what it was a year ago. So you're gonna have some options, man. I have high expectations for baseball this year. Very high. And I think we spent so much time talking about coaches and stuff in this hour. I think baseball is the perfect example of what can happen when you got the right coach in the right spot. Because I am a big believer in Eric Bakich, man. Not to say that, I thought Monty Lee was a good hire at the time. So cards on the table. Sometimes things just don't work out. Bakich was a candidate when Lee got hired. Never know what would have happened if they'd have went that route the first time. But I do believe they've got the right guy in place now. They got the right guy over the pitching staff in Jimmy Bellinger. I've got really high expectations for baseball this year. So if you're a baseball fan, we're going to spend the whole hour Thursday talking baseball. Be on the lookout. I got a conversation coming with Eric Bakich sometime on Wednesday. I'm not sure what time it'll go live on YouTube, but that's on the way. Carson says he hopes the stars align and we make it back to Omaha. Yeah. I'm taking absolutely nothing away from pitching, which Friday, it wasn't cold, man. It was very warm. It was a nice day outside, and which I think played a part in why the balls were jumping off the bat, and kind of gives you a little bit of insight into why Bakich wants the fences moved back. Met Bakich on opening day last year. Super nice guy. Yeah, Bakich is, man, I home run hire for me, man. I just think he is the right guy in the right spot at the right time. I love his attention to detail. He makes those, he's a stickler for details, man. He makes those kids earn everything. And I'm a big fan of that kind of coaching, man. Another good point. Pitcher's always going to have advantage the hitter's always going to have advantage on their teammates when they're facing their teammates. Yeah, hey, Alden Mathis Alden Mathis. I can't talk. Hey, he looked good too. He's at first base most of the time. I think he hit one out Friday. But yeah, he was hitting the ball. He was hitting the ball well too, man. He looks like a good pickup out of the portal. No, he's not a portal guy. Never mind. Don't think he is. But yeah, Alden Mathis looked pretty good this weekend. I think he's going to be in that opening day lineup. Now, okay, he was a transfer. Came in from Richmond. My memory is just not what it used to be. So I think Backus did a lot of good things in the portal. Mathis being one, Hindelater being one, Overtop really being one. So if you find the right pieces and they fit, positive. Bring in guys that don't fit, sometimes not a positive. Like the fact that he brought Jack Leggett back around. Yeah, you can tell. You can tell Jack Leggett's in his happy place, man. Right where he belongs. Right where he belongs. Hey, if you have not done so, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, no Paul Talk Wednesday. We're going to do the baseball preview show Thursday. When baseball season starts, we're going to do previews every Friday. Be on the lookout for those. We're going to probably be baseball heavy from a show standpoint, once we get into the season. And again, got me and Coach Backich. Look for that to be coming out probably Wednesday sometime. Get him for a few minutes, and we'll probably get him one more time before the season starts. I'm thinking next Tuesday, in a media setting. Appreciate everybody that tuned in here tonight. I know it's not football season, man, and I know that everybody, I know that's the main draw here. Somebody asked me about recruiting earlier, and I skipped over it. I meant to go back to it, and I didn't. We're going in a dead period, so there's just not a lot to talk about this month. The dead period is going to last most of the month. It's not a lot to talk about from a recruiting standpoint. Yes, I do think Cade Klubnik's going to take a big jump this year. The question is, how big of a jump does he take? Year two in the same offense, under the same coordinator. You get your wide receivers healthy and hopefully keep them that way, and you get that immediate influx of talent with TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco. So hopefully that helps. So I gotta, I've got expectations of the offense taking that next step, and along with Klubnik. If you are still listening, Big E, is as far as about who is wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and wide receiver 3, I don't know. I think TJ Moore is going to be hard to keep off the field. He's physically ready right now. See what I think. I think Wesco needs a little bit of bulk before he's ready to be an every down guy. We'll see where he is in the fall. I think he's going to help you this year, though, regardless. And Tyler Brown and Antonio Williams and Stellato are going to be on the field at some point, somehow, some way. But to me, it's those freshmen, man, especially Moore. I think Clemson's finally got a legitimate boundary guy that can stretch the field. Again, don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And yes, I know. I do not have a hat on. That's a couple of times y'all probably seen me now without one. I actually got my first haircut since I was a teenager 2 weeks ago, or last weekend. I've always just done it myself. Bzz. I've let it grow out a little bit. I've been to a couple places here recently where, I didn't want to wear a hat and I didn't want to walk around with a shaved head. So I'm not making any predictions, but you might see me without it a little bit more here in the future. It just depends. I might get sick of getting haircuts and go back to buzzing it again. All right, man. Appreciate everybody that joined in tonight, man. We always have fun cutting it up here on Mondays. Thursday night, big baseball preview, 7:00 right here. Me and Eric Backich, one-on-one, some point Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. We'll put that live. And as we go into baseball season, man, we're probably going to be real heavy with baseball shows. So if you're a baseball fan, be on the lookout for that. As always, one thing that will remain a constant. We will be here each and every Monday, 7 p.m. This show's definitely not going anywhere. We'll be here every week, football season or not, dead period or not. We'll always find something to talk about. And for those of you that have tuned in, remain loyal viewers. I very much appreciate it. Any new viewers out there tonight, appreciate y'all too. Join us again next Monday. We'll have a little bit more fun. See y'all then.